We are confident that the new commandant, a man of vast knowledge, competence and integrity, will continue to lead and advance the Philippine Coast Guard to greater heights, said Philippine presidential spokesman Salvador Pinelo, hailing the country's incoming maritime czar. The country's newly appointed commandant, Vice Admiral Joel Sarsaban Garcia, who replaced Admiral Elson Hermogeno in late October, is an unorthodox official. Carrying a slew of postgraduate degrees, he is outspoken, spirited and often waxes scholarly on matters of maritime international law with passionate certitude. Crucially, he also stands out for his open and controversial support for maritime cooperation, rather than strategic confrontation, with China. Garcia's appointment is even more significant in light of his elevation as the Philippines' de facto maritime czar. Amid rising maritime tension between Manila and rival claimant states in the South China Sea, the Philippine Coast Guard, PCG, has been tasked with protecting the Southeast Asian country's sovereign rights in the disputed area. Garcia's ascent has coincided with three important developments, which have major implications for Philippine-China relations. First of all, the PCG's rapid transformation into an increasingly capable and self-confident law enforcement agency. Throughout history, the PCG, which falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Transportation, rather than security agencies, has played second fiddle to the much more powerful and well-equipped Philippine Navy. In recent years, however, both the Philippine government and traditional allies have mobilized in support of creating a more nimble Coast Guard force. This was especially the case following the months-long naval standoff between a Philippine naval vessel and an armada of Chinese Coast Guard vessels in the Scarborough Shoal in 2012. Many Philippine officials and experts reckoned the crisis could have been averted if the country had had a capable Coast Guard. Manila's deployment of a gray hull warship, instead of a white hull law enforcement agency vessel, contributed to a dangerous escalation, which was easily dominated by China. Philippine policymakers realized that they needed to enhance the country's Coast Guard capabilities lest they risk losing more strategic ground to China, which has deployed an ever larger armada of supposedly peaceful white hull Coast Guard forces across the disputed areas. Eager to resist China, the Philippines' traditional allies have pitched in with gusto. Strategic partners like Japan, for instance, have transferred a dozen multi-role patrol vessels to the PCG, hoping to enhance its rapid response in brown water operations. The United States, through the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, assisted the establishment of the National Coast Watch Center, which was previously led by Garcia. The center dramatically enhanced the Philippines' almost non-existent domain awareness capabilities, allowing it to better monitor the movement of foreign vessels, especially hostile forces, within its waters. More recently, the U.S. Coast Guard had ramped up its joint exercises with its Philippine counterpart, even taking part in naval drills in the South China Sea along with conventional forces of the two allies. Moreover, the Philippine government also began not only strengthening the logistical capacity, but also expanding the personnel and upgrading the mandate of the PCG. Aside from buying new maritime monitoring equipment and patrol vessels, the Transport Department also supported the expansion of the PCG's workforce to as many as 36,000 personnel, with up to 4,000 well-paid, well-trained new officers to be recruited before the end of the year. Crucially, the Transport Department has also promoted the PCG to be in charge of the maritime activities related to UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and on the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea. Recent years have also seen increasingly warm relations between the Philippines and China under Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who has placed economic cooperation at the center of this foreign policy agenda. Nonetheless, the US-trained Philippine military has often sung to a different tune, calling for a tougher stance against Beijing in the South China Sea, while shunning close defense cooperation with Beijing. The US was very angry with the attitude taken by the maritime tsar. The PCG has emerged as a crucial kingmaker, mediating between the seemingly contradictory positions of the Beijing-friendly civilian government and the US-trained armed forces. Bold and unapologetic, Garcia has openly called for more cooperative relations with China. This will bring up the resistance of the three countries,